Welcome to Ignite Your Confidence for women in leadership who want to speak up and stand out. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Here you'll get all of the tips and tools that you need to stand out with unshakable confidence. Let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to today's episode. This is so incredibly personal for me because I'm going to read chapter 1 of my first ever solo book, Trust Your Own Voice. Chapter 1. Empower yourself. Everyone was staring at me. Sitting in the boardroom, attempting to present, I was tongue-tied. Looking down at my notes, my halted speech continued. 6 leadership team peers, including Sue, the company president, were gently suggesting ways to proceed while I struggled to express myself. I felt so stupid. The problem? I didn't agree with what I was supposed to present. It didn't make sense. My boss, Sue, had suggested months prior that I lead this discussion. It didn't make sense then, and it didn't make sense now, but I never said anything. I chose to go with it, even though I disagreed. I figured she knew better. Trapped by my internal conflict of what I was taught, don't question your boss because she knows best and you need to respect her authority, versus my own knowing that this didn't make sense, I stumbled over my words. After several awkward moments, Sue swooped in and kindly suggested we table the discussion. I was grateful, yet mortified. Afterward, she pulled me into her office. Today was a perfect example of you not trusting your gut, Karen. You could have stopped and said, I don't even remember why we were doing this in the first place. Let's table it. Seriously? That would have never occurred to me. Could it really be that easy? I thought I had to do what my boss said, regardless of whether I agreed. I was so embarrassed. Why do I still need permission to speak up? I thought. I'm in my 40s, for goodness sakes, and I'm a senior leader with decades of experience. Why can't I trust myself? Can you relate? All I wanted was to share my ideas without hesitation, to stop holding back and confidently speak up, even if my ideas were unpopular, to act without needing other people's permission, to overcome the fear of what other people would think, to stop doubting myself and trust my gut, to trust my own voice, to be free. What about you? You may have felt this way with a teacher, parent, or sibling struggling to voice your ideas, your opinions, struggling to find your voice. I've coached thousands of women, and it's an issue, even among senior leaders. It's sobering to realize how many of us have had similar experiences. Most of the problem stems from our past. Voices that form us. Growing up, my dad never really saw me. He never said, I love you or I'm proud of you. He beamed to his buddies on the tennis court about my accomplishments, but never to me. Once he dropped me off at the Minneapolis airport as a young adult, and I decided to say I love you to see what he would do. His eyes awkwardly met mine and then quickly moved to the car floor. He was emotionally detached and a man of few words. One entire summer, he ignored me for not putting enough gas in the car. He would take me on walks to downtown Minneapolis, but talked at me the whole time, lecturing about things that didn't interest me, such as the history of the train tracks. He didn't enter my world. He never heard me. My voice didn't seem to matter. I desperately wanted a connection with him, but my attempts to get his approval were futile and left me feeling worthless. When I was 13, I poured out my heart to him in a letter, hoping to reach him so things could be better between us. He never opened it. For 2 weeks, my mom would make the bed and put it back on his pillow. 2 weeks straight. He never opened it. I wondered if my voice was important or if I mattered. I felt invisible. After 2 weeks, it was Mom who ended up opening my letter. Inside, she found her daughter's heart on the pages, desperately attempting to reach her father. But she said nothing to him about it because you didn't question my father. Even though I was never explicitly told I didn't have a voice, that's what was modeled to me. In my house, I learned that it's better to stay silent in order to keep the peace. I wanted her to stand up for me, to stand up for herself, but she didn't. Mom was a nurturing homemaker raising 9 kids who submitted to my dad's authority. I was taught to believe that the authority figure knows best, and therefore, my voice as a woman wasn't important enough to be heard. Only 2 times in my childhood can I recall her crying. When I was 10 years old, she was changing the sheets and shared with me that Dad wouldn't let her take a job as secretary at St. Peter's Church. All she wanted was a little independence and a purpose of her own outside the home, but she wasn't given permission. The second time was when I was 12. I found her upstairs, hunched over her sewing machine in tears. Dad wouldn't let her travel to my brother's last football game as quarterback at Dartmouth. She had never been to one game. Mom often dismissed her value. Whenever she would phone someone, her opening words were, "Sorry to bother you." These moments confused me. I felt frustrated, angry, and helpless. She was an adult, a peer of my dad. Why wouldn't she do what she wanted? He had ignored her for days in the past when she went against his will. She said she couldn't take the silence. Yet, Mom was a powerhouse leader in the community. She led ministries at church and a branch of the local Little League. She was publicly recognized as an influential leader. There, she used her voice. She led people and meetings. I witnessed this when she brought my siblings and me to events. I saw her use her voice confidently in those settings. How conflicting to watch her at home when Mom chose to set aside her needs and her voice to accommodate my dad's. I learned from her that in the home, everyone else and everyone else's voices came first. Mixed messages. Mom and Dad sent me conflicting messages with their actions and their choices. Mom spoke up outside the home, but restrained her voice around Dad. Did this mean a woman's voice should be squelched around men and authority figures who were usually one and the same? Yet, she did speak up in the community, often in meetings that included men. What was I supposed to learn? Was it okay to speak up? Or was it better to fall silent and let others speak? These mixed messages from Dad were complex. On one hand, I was suppressed. He didn't even bother to open the letters to read what I had to say. On the other hand, I was empowered. He taught me to speak up for myself. He taught me the power of asking and often said, "The squeaky wheel gets the grease." Have you received any mixed messages from authority figures in your life? I had to empower myself. My dad wouldn't listen to my deepest pain, my deepest desires, even when I carefully worded them in a letter. I wanted to be heard, and I tried creative ways to do so, but nothing worked. He didn't seem to care what I had to say. Mom couldn't find or trust her voice around my dad, so I lacked a strong female role model to show me how to speak with confidence. If only they would have reassured me that my voice mattered. What I needed was to feel safe and accepted without criticism, knowing I wouldn't be judged if I shared something unpopular or that rocked the boat. My parents couldn't give me that safety or acceptance. I've come to realize no one could do that for me. What I needed was to empower myself. The challenge. I had to become someone who isn't dependent upon others to give me permission to speak. I had to believe that my ideas mattered, that I mattered, that I had valuable things to say, even if someone disagreed with me. I had to get to the point where I didn't need anyone's approval. But how? It felt like an impossible task. The summer before entering high school, I turned the tables on my dad. For 8 years prior, I attended St. Peter's, the Catholic school in my hometown of Richfield, Minnesota. For my freshman year, I wanted to go to the public school, Richfield High. My dad wanted me to go to Holy Angels, the Catholic high school. So that was the plan. There was no debate or discussion with him. You did what he said. It was hard to interact with him, to be heard. In an early attempt to empower myself, I tried to convince him otherwise. He still said no. A way to reach him. My plan was to get cut from the tennis team. That was the only way I had a chance. Dad was proud of my tennis game. He had worked hard to make me as good as I was. Ever since I was 6, he made me play every day. And at first I hated it because it was a have to. I ended up being grateful that he made me play as I enjoyed being confident on the court. Fast forward to the day he got the call from Holy Angel's tennis coach. Befuddled, he couldn't believe I was cut. I swallowed my pride all summer and lobbed those balls as far out of the court as possible. I had a mission and I accomplished it. I didn't know what would come of it. I only knew that was my best course of control. 2 days before Richfield started, Dad said, "Do you want to go to Richfield?" I said, "Yes." And he mumbled, "Well, you can go," and walked out of my room. Victory! It worked. I went on to be a star on the tennis team, and he came to almost every game. Dad's greatest gifts. Despite my dad's emotional distance, he built into me 2 of my greatest gifts: the belief that I can do anything and the boldness to take action. For example, he often assembled the entire neighborhood to advocate for causes he believed in. He wouldn't hesitate to knock on doors for signatures. He was relentless. He may not have entered my world, but I was watching his world. He made things happen. Dad first taught me how to negotiate at a flea market when I was 6 years old. He put a few dollars in my hand to go shopping and told me to never take full price. I had no problem asking. I felt empowered using my voice. I found it quite exhilarating. It was a thrill to see if I could woo the person to give me a lower price. By the time I was a young adult, I had experimented with different techniques to be heard. Lassoing the good gift from my dad to be bold enough to take action, I started speaking up in my new role as a Mary Kay consultant. Fake it till you make it. At 18 years old, I made a killing. Trained by my dad to be fearless, I would go up to anyone and ask her opinion. I was booking facials and making sales. This is where I learned the concept, fake it till you make it. Every Monday night, I would attend the Mary Kay sales meetings where they taught us that you'd never know every detail of the product, but you'll want to act like you do. With this training, I gained confidence and overcame some of the conflicting messages from my parents. I had a natural warmth that drew people to me. Ever since I was a kid, people have felt comfortable around me. I leveraged that without realizing it by simply being myself, and it worked. Act as if. Simultaneously, I was taking ballroom dance classes at Arthur Murray. I'll never forget when I walked into the studio and another student asked me if I was an instructor. Who, me? What? He smiled. You walked in so confidently. I thought you were in charge. What an impact on my 18-year-old self. From that point on, I walked into rooms with my shoulders back and head held high. How is this the same young woman who held back due to fear of what other people would think, to the point where I missed out on opportunities because I didn't fully express my true self? I can't be sure it was my confident stride and bold moxie that led to my success, but I was a leader in high school, class president and co-captain of the tennis team. I traveled for national marketing competitions through an organization called DECA, Distributive Education Clubs of America. These opportunities counteracted the confusion of home, helping me see that I did have a voice and that I could be heard. Years later, in business, I'm the one who always asks. I've created my own job 3 times in my career, making a case for myself and advocating for why I'm the best person for the role. I'm a fearless negotiator. Thanks, Dad. In retrospect, I see the tools piling up that formed me. Believe you can do anything. Be bold enough to take action. Fake it till you make it. Be yourself. Leverage your natural strengths to influence others. Stand tall and walk with confidence. always negotiate. Even a car dealership owner told me that I wore him out. That wasn't my intention, but I was committed to getting the best deal. I'm relentless, as my dad was. A few years into my job as a corporate trainer, my boss said she wanted to hear more from me in meetings, that my voice is valuable. When you speak up, she said, you have great input. I walked out of her office feeling excited and also conflicted. Part of me, the flea market negotiator, the class president, the Mary Kay sales rep, stood taller, prouder. Another part, the girl whose father never opened her letter, never valued her voice, felt hesitant, unsure. My boss had many of my dad's characteristics and equally conflicting messages. Sometimes when I or others spoke up, she dismissed those ideas. Did she really mean it when she said I should speak up? Why speak up if she might veto it anyway? I remained confident with clients and my direct reports, but I found myself holding back when it came to our leadership team. Even though I knew my perspective was valued, I kept quiet much of the time. I didn't feel safe. I came across as wishy-washy. I would go with the majority or what I thought my boss wanted to hear. I'm not proud of that. I wish I had had the confidence to share my ideas more often. With each meeting, I felt trapped, conflicted, and hesitant to share what I really thought. Sometimes I would be close to saying something, but then the moment would pass. It grated on me. I wanted to overcome it. You can empower yourself. Sue was both my biggest challenger and my strongest champion. Her personality held me back, but her encouragement to trust my gut made me aware that I had a pattern of not doing that. I had to get to the root of my problem. I knew I needed to examine my past in order to empower myself. You can learn to trust your own voice and empower yourself too. There is hope, and that's why I'm writing this book, for you. You can overcome the self-doubt messages from your past and speak with confidence. You can stop holding back and be free. The path to growth starts with healing. My healing journey with Dr. John Townsend and Dennis Del Valle over 10 years in the Townsend Leadership Program taught me how to get my emotional needs met. I didn't even know I had needs until I was 40 years old. I grew up with a mom who ignored her emotional needs. That's the model I followed. You live for everyone else. Make them happy, whatever the cost. I learned about boundaries, recognizing that no is a complete sentence. Tips for you in chapter 8. I told a friend that I can't give her career coaching anymore unless she pays me. I learned the power of grieving. The process sucks, but the healing is worth it. This included saying goodbye to my dad and grieving other losses from my past. Therapy helped. As I began to learn the power of feeling my feelings, my therapist told me to put my hand on the spot where I was feeling the emotion physically. It was in my stomach. When I put my hand there, I couldn't help but think, I'm paying you $150 an hour to feel my stomach? Let's get to the point. I've come to realize that is the point. When we learn how to feel and lean into the feeling, it eventually will pass. It will not overwhelm us. It's the path to healing. I learned to ask for what I needed. I felt empowered with the comfort and strength of being known. After years of this dedication to growth, I finally got to the point where I actually believed that I mattered, and so did my ideas. You can heal from whatever is holding you back. When you get the right support, you're on your way to growth. It will take time, but it's possible. You're on your way to empowering yourself. Empowered people speak up for themselves. That's what I want for you. My transformation moment. One of the first times I pushed back with Sue during a meeting was months after my tongue-tied moment in the boardroom. I proposed an idea and she waved her hand with a dismissive gesture. I almost shut up. Then I thought, no, my idea is important. So I pushed back again. She ultimately disagreed, but I'm proud that I spoke up. It felt good to stand up for myself. Even when your ideas don't get used, there's still value in speaking up and owning your opinions. The fact that someone dismisses them doesn't diminish them. This is why a lot of women stop speaking up, because we put too much value in what the other person thinks. We need to realize that even when someone disagrees, your ideas and you are still worthy. That never changes. In a conversation with Sue, I asked what she thought about an issue. She quipped, "I don't know, Karen. What do you think? You always ask others first. I want to know what you think." My jaw dropped. I never recognized this pattern. Upon reflection, I realized I would typically come to a meeting asking everybody else what they thought and rarely spoke up. Or I would wait and go along with the most popular vote. This pattern had to stop. I realized I could no longer keep myself trapped. It was time to free myself. Back in the boardroom, during another leadership meeting, I had my moment. For the first time, instead of waiting, I spoke first. Here's my vote. I shared my opinion in a way that felt right for me. I was no longer hiding, and it was exhilarating. No one died or rejected me. Sue didn't wave her hand dismissively, but even if she did, I knew I would never go back. I would venture to say that I was even more respected. More importantly, I was trusting my own voice, no matter the consequences of speaking up. Equipping women to speak up. It's been a transformative journey. Finding my voice is the most powerful thing. Finding my voice is the most powerful. Let's try that again. Finding my voice is the most empowering thing I've done for myself. My story has become my calling. In fact, for the past several years, I've been teaching women how to trust their own voices. My profession is in communication. I'm a keynote speaker and stand on stages equipping women with the tools needed to overcome self-doubt and speak with confidence. I love supporting women with how to build trust and credibility quickly through their voice, presence, and message. My mission is to reach 10 million women, women like you, like me. Anyone who has ever sat in a boardroom or classroom or laundry room and felt silenced. Imagine if we all felt free to speak up in a way that honored ourselves and brought the best version of us to light. Consider this your invitation. If you don't trust your own voice, today can be your moment. You can overcome the self-doubt from your past that causes you to hold back. You can be confident in your own voice. You can speak up without hesitation. You can empower yourself. You can be free. And that's a wrap of another episode of Ignite Your Confidence. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. If you're interested in more tips and tools around confidence, please join me over in my Facebook group called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Laus. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.